Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our open forum for ISSO CUIMC. Today is, we will go over some tips and reminders regarding our J&H applications. All of us have been familiar with our new system called Compass, our case management system, where it was launched last March. And of course, that coincided with all of us going remote. And so it was a challenge, but we pulled through it. And I think it was sort of a blessing that we had this available to us, the Compass system. And so it worked fairly well. It worked very well as time went on. Initially, we had, we're still working through glitches. It's a system that will be upgraded, sort of like our cell phones get upgraded. Well, it will be upgraded to a new version in the next couple of weeks. We understand our IT people are working on that. But overall, your experience will not change too much. But today really is for those of us who have worked in Compass, have submitted applications for both the J and the H. So today, right now, we'll start off with just some of our tips. So with me today is Gwyneth and Christina, and we will just go over all of the things on our slides. So just some reminders. Visa sponsorship requires an affiliation to Columbia University for all of our international scholar/employees. I'll refer to them as scholars, employees throughout this session. Please be sure to process appointments and hires so that they're in PAC within 1 month of their hire. Keep in mind that, all of our internationals are coming from abroad, maybe with a certain amount of money, a certain amount of, resources, and they need to be appointed, put on payroll as soon as possible after their arrival. So please give them a very high priority. We have had enough situations that, it does become an issue for some individuals, specifically who are pretty tight on their budgets. So please make sure that you give them a high priority and appoint and get them in PAC, get their benefits moving along and all of those things in order as soon as possible. One other very important thing is that our J1s, H1s all have a CUIMC exchange account. Many times we communicate with them, and that communication is more sound when they have a Columbia account versus, let's say, an outside account that could change. So please be sure that they have a CUIMC exchange account. For those J1s that are sponsored by our J1, the title change from postdoc scientist or fellow to associate research scientist does not require a change to H1B if the scholar has J1 time remaining. The J1 duration is 5 years. As a result, if their postdoc is 3 and they still have 2 years left, they can remain in their J for their associate research scientist appointment. And that, allows them then more time on the H where they're not using up their H life if they have J available to them. If there is a resignation from a position earlier than the end date listed on their immigration document for J1, the DS 2019, for H1, the I-797 approval notice, please submit a termination form with both the department and the scholar employee's signature. We are actually currently updating the termination form. We have 2 different forms out there that we will, make into one form so that there is clarity on what you need to submit to us. I believe that on the OFA website, there is the termination form that includes all of the statuses that a person could be in, but on the ISSO website, it's just for an H-1B employee. So we are trying to work on that and combine those. Next slide. Regarding letters of non-renewal, if an employee in H-1B status receives a letter of non-renewal and the termination date precedes the H-1B end date, the department is required to pay the return transportation to their last country of residence. The department must arrange to purchase a ticket. Sometimes individuals do not depart the United States. We're not responsible for that. We are responsible if they are going to be returning. So in the LON, either you included in the LON the information that they are eligible for this return transportation, or you do it separately. But it must be done at the time that the letter of non-renewal is issued. For the offices, HR, OFA, payroll, and health insurance benefits, those matters are not under our purview. And many times we are individual departments will refer our internationals to us for these kinds of questions that relate more to payroll or OFA. Please refer them to the appropriate office, since we are not able to advise on these matters. And so we would appreciate it if you could just refer them to the appropriate office. And, since instituting Compass, as I said earlier, we have, it's a work in progress, and there are updates and there are things that we can improve on. And one of the things we have now in the H1 in the Compass is that an H1B or a J1 scholar can now update their address directly in Compass, which is extremely helpful. Of course, they have to notify you, the department, but sometimes we are not informed, and this way they can just go into their Compass record and inform us. And H1B employees can now also update their passport information directly in Compass, which is extremely helpful. During the pandemic, there were obviously instances where individuals had expired passports because they couldn't update them because of the consulate closures. But this will, hopefully avoid situations and make sure people are up to date on their passport. Next slide. And now I will turn it over to Christina, who will go over some of the Compass issues.
All right, so these are some of our most common Compass issues that we've had. So first of all, when adding a new person in Compass, please make sure that you enter the name exactly as the machine readable zone in the bottom of the biographical page of their passport. So that means the first name field in Compass would include the first name and the middle name, and the last name field would be the family name. When submitting a request in Compass for a scholar employee who has previously been affiliated with Compass, so as an employee, a student, a visiting scholar, please reach out to us for the Compass ID. So you can just email us and we'll give you the Compass ID, and in that way you can start the application. This also avoids duplicate records, which can cause a lot of mess and confusion. So that would be great. Please make sure that the scholar's address and phone number are inputted correctly into Compass. This is when we mail out documents. We want to make sure it goes to the correct address. And after an application is submitted in Compass, we do receive a notification. So it is not necessary to follow by email. And we do kindly ask you to wait for the application turnaround time to pass before contacting us. All right, I'll pass it back to Kathy for the J1 topics.
Okay, so Khadijah Wilson is our J expert. She's on vacation currently, but as you know, any J1 issues or questions you direct directly to Khadijah. But we wanted to go over some of these topics here today. Just, it's a refresher, and also some things that are important for everybody to know. So the requested start date must be, for the J1DS 2019, we ask that it be, the request date should be no less than 2 months forward. And that is that allows the time that we need, but primarily the time needed for mailing and applying for the visa, plane ticket entry. So there's a good chunk of time from the day we issue that DS 2019 that is needed in order for the individual to be able to arrive at our campus. So we will start just adjusting that date to 2 months forward, because it's very cumbersome to have to always change that start date. And we like to have those start dates to align with their actual start date at Columbia as close to the date as possible. So please choose a date 2 months forward. The ISSO, we must be informed if the arrival start date indicated on the DS 2019 changes. So please inform us as soon as that is, you become aware of that change. And there are many reasons why that happens. I mean, individuals can't, get a plane ticket right now because of the pandemic. There are delays, but in general, just, keep us informed. And the J1 scholar must arrive in the US prior to the DS 2019 start date. If this is not possible, but we will change the start date. Amending the start date is always possible. And so it is, a bit of, a pain in the neck in the sense that you have to, keep aware of all of your J1s and the timing. But we do ask that you, keep that in mind when, choosing a start date and then keeping the start date up to date. And we want the start date, as I said, to be the same as the academic appointment start date. It works out very well, especially, when we have the academic appointment going for a duration of 1 year. Usually they're at least, 1 year up to 3 years. And then there's that evenness at the end, where at the end, they're not asking for an extra month that they may not have available to them. And so trying to keep those dates in check is very helpful, not only at the time of hire, but at the, when they're coming to the end date of their appointment. Next slide. And a start date can be changed, as I said, but only for a future date. It can never go back in time. And we have our online check-in system, and the online, we inform our scholars to inform us when they arrive in the United States, how to check in online. We're notified that they have checked in, and then we have to go into the system, into the SEVIS system, which is the Student Exchange Visitor Information System, and validate their record. And when we validate their record comes in, goes into from an initial status to an active status. Once it's an active status, that is a trigger for the Department of Homeland Security to know that they've, their record is valid, they're here, and we are fully aware that they're here. When they're doing their I-9, if that record is not in active status, that I-9 will be put on hold. I don't really understand how all of that works, but because we are now an E-Verify employer, that I-9 goes through DHS, and the Department of Homeland Security will verify before they approve that I-9. And that will not happen if the record is not in active status. So make sure that before you send an employee for an I-9, that they have checked in with us. The extension beyond the 3 years would be for a 4th or 5th year postdoctoral appointment. As we all know, that postdoctoral 4th or 5th year is approved only 1 year at a time. And we no longer issue a J1 for a 5-year duration. We only issue it for a 3-year duration based on a postdoc normally being 3 years. After that, the 4th year will only be approved once we know that the provost approval has been authorized. And the same will go for the 5th year. So please keep that in mind when requesting a 4th or 5th year. And you know, we ask that you upload the provost approval letter in Compass so that we can see that it's been approved. Next slide. And now I will turn it over to Gwyneth to talk about H-1B topics.
Thanks, Kathy. All right, so nice seeing everybody today. We have a nice sized group here, so that's just wonderful. So in regards to H-1Bs, H-1Bs should be, the applications really need to be submitted 6 months in advance of the requested start date to allow for sufficient processing time. So that is the amount of time that we need to prepare the H-1B application, and that includes the time that it takes to receive the labor condition application back from the Department of Labor. It includes the mailing times to and from USCIS. So it is a lengthy process, and it is really important that we have this amount of time so that we can do what we need to do to process these H-1Bs. You know, I know that this is not always possible. 6 months is not always possible, but if you can, basically what we're saying is 6 months is the amount of time we really need. So the sooner you can get us the documents, the better. The next thing we wanted to talk to you about was the first step in Compass, which is named the H-1B position details with comparable wage information. That's the e-form. That is the first e-form that you will be submitting for the H-1B request. So it's really, really important that this information be exact and that it perfectly aligns with what the job posting states. So we will be matching those. And if there's a discrepancy, it's just going to cause further delays because we'll need you to make the correction, etc. It's also very important that this is accurate because this is the information that we use to put in the labor condition application. And so the details that are submitted determine what that prevailing wage is going to be as well. And so it's best to have it as accurate to the posting as possible. And so that is very, very important. All right. The next bullet that we have listed here is in regards to the letters of support. We have templates for you to write these letters of support, and you please review the corresponding template on our website before submitting your letter of support. You may need two templates to create your one letter of support. So be sure to review the letters that we have for you as samples. It's also important just to keep in mind that these letters of support paint a picture to USCIS in regards to this individual's petition. So this is really critical for USCIS to see what is entailed with this petition. So we want to make sure we give them the accurate information and that we really spell it out in that letter of support. When submitting your supporting documents to the mailroom, you don't need to print out every e-form or attestation that is in Compass. So just submit the supporting documents that are listed on our website. We need 2 sets of those supporting documents, as many of you know. And there's also no need to provide copies of page 2 of the I-797 or the DS 2019 or the instruction page of the I-20. Also, this is a really minor thing, but it does help us to be the most efficient we can be. Please don't, there's no need to staple any of your documents. We just have to take out the staples because we scan everything. So please feel free to use paper clips. They're great, but staples, can cause us to be a little bit less efficient than if we didn't have to go through all those staples.
Gwyneth, I just wanted to add something there. With regard to the uploads, the uploaded documents are not necessarily all the documents we need. Sometimes an H-1B applicant will upload everything they've had in their immigration history, and every page of their passport. And so we only need what is listed on the website. So for instance, the passport is just the personal page. And if the way the list on the website reads, if somebody is currently in F1 status, then provide the I-20s. But if they're not, we don't need them. But meanwhile, the H-1B applicant may have included them. So please review the list very carefully and only give us the copies that are requested for this particular application.
Excellent point, Kathy. Thank you. All right. So next, let's talk a little bit about check requests. So if you can, please reference the name of the H-1B beneficiary on the check request. That helps us match that check to that beneficiary's petition. We don't need letters anymore. So you don't, or in order to file a check request, you don't need those letters anymore. It's all on the website. But if you can put the H-1B beneficiary's name, that would be very, very helpful on that check request. Also note that we cannot advise on the deemed export attestation. You can find guidance on the e-form and on our website in regards to this form. Next slide, please, Christina. Thank you. All right, so unfortunately, USCIS no longer returns the approval notices via FedEx when a petition is premium processed. So the reason we want to make note of this to you is this causes yet another delay in obtaining that approval notice. So that it is sent via regular mail. We have seen mailing delays. This goes back to submit these documents to us as soon as you can. 6 months is ideal, again, prior to the start date of the H-1B. All right, so in regards to the 240-day rule and the I-9, this rule only applies to extensions, not to changes of status. So for I-9 purposes, the FedEx tracking number is no longer acceptable. You're going to need to work with HR on the I-9 supporting documentation. The next bullet, we wanted to make note that we are evaluating the H-1B sponsorship for administrative and support staff positions. This means that we are no longer going to be sponsoring these positions for H-1B. Kathy, do you want to say something else about this? Yeah.
Okay, so when this slide was created, we were still evaluating, but we have made the decision and we'll be sending something out shortly that effective 9/1, we will no longer sponsor administrative positions and support staff positions. So that means the technician Bs, clinical research coordinators, et cetera, will not be supported. And the premise for this has to do with, first of all, the scrutiny at USCIS is much greater. And they will ask us to verify that the position required a degree in a specific field, a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Unfortunately, that is not the case at Columbia. Many of our positions, just require a bachelor's degree, no specific field of degree, and therefore it's very difficult to substantiate that it did. Also, if an individual comes on board, let's say as an F1 in their OPT, They have their regular OPT and their STEM OPT, which equals 3 years of time. Then we change them to age, which is 6 years. They could be at Columbia for a total of almost 9 years. And then we'd have to say goodbye. We would not be able to support a green card for these positions because these positions would require an extensive recruitment, surveying the market for any qualified American or permanent resident. And as a result, it seems unfair to, to come to this point and then not be able to, further support them. So, we evaluated, we made the decision, and as of 9/1, we will no longer support these positions.
All right. And then if an officer of research, excluding postdocs or faculty in H-1B status, intends to apply for U.S. permanent residence under Columbia University sponsorship, they must initiate the process by their 4th year in H-1B status. So to discuss the eligibility requirements and for case-specific information, please contact our colleague on the Morningside campus, Liz Basile, and her email address is ekb2151@columbia.edu.
And I wanted to just add something there as well. Liz has been handling green card applications for both campuses for about a year now. And Liz comes with a lot of expertise in this area. And the decision back last year was, to have her do both campuses. Liz is in a position now where, of course, she's receiving many applications or many requests, and the last minute requests cannot be honored because it's a very extensive process to support a green card application. And so she and our office has agreed that by the 4th year, by the end of the 4th year in H-1B, the request needs to be made because it does allow for the time that's needed to change somebody to permanent residence. So please keep that in mind. If you have individuals who you are strongly considering for U.S. permanent residence, we don't have to wait till the 4th year. You can start sooner. This is just where this is going to be the point where Liz will accept that application to process. If it's last minute, then that application will have to go out and be processed by an outside attorney that is Columbia selected by Columbia and or approved by Columbia, I should say. And then there are fees associated with that, which are pretty significant. Lawyers' legal fees are significant. So please keep that in mind. The earlier, the better when it comes to U.S. permanent residence.
All right. And then finally, working remotely abroad does require the approval by the International Hiring Committee.
That is, as we know, during the pandemic, that was a very prevalent that we had individuals working remotely. I mean, many of us work remotely, but for somebody working remotely and doing it abroad and being paid by a U.S. entity, there are tax implications. And those that are doing research under sponsored projects, there are sponsored project implications. So if there is a remote arrangement, it has to go through the International Hiring Committee, at any point in time. I mean, I know there are opportunities that, arise that require this. And so please keep that in mind. And also please notify us if that is going to be the case.
All right. So that is it for us and our tips and reminders for you. And we want to turn it over to you for this open forum. Do you have any questions for us? I see that Annette in the chat has mentioned something here, which I can read out. The provost will not approve the 4th year before 3 months prior to the end date. What is the timeline for DS 2019 extensions?
I can answer that, Annette. Thanks for the question. The DS 2019 request, whether it be an initial or an extension, we turn those around very quickly, you know, within a week or two. So there will be no concern about this whatsoever. And when there is a rush to for an extension of a J1, it's very it's much easier to extend a J1 than it is to extend an H1. There is no adjudication or approval process from immigration, where the H1B requires the filing of all the documents and approval from US Immigration. So the J1, yes, you know, within 2 weeks, we should be able to do that extension.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Well, this is good. All right, if there's nothing else, then of course,
I have
we
a
are,
question.
yes,
Sorry.
Natasha.
Hi. So I have a fellow who has her title will be changed from associate to associate research scientist as of July 1st. But her visa isn't up until for renewal until October. Can you give guidance on what dates we should input for renewal?
Okay, so is this person in J1 status?
No, H1B.
H1B, and they, okay, so H1B October is less than 6 months away. So we can start that H1B process now.
Okay.
So you can submit a request, and the associate research scientist title is changing as of July 1.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an important question and something that when a person in H1B status has a change to their a material change, as US Immigration calls it in the regulations, we are required to amend that petition. Now, as we know, a postdoc to associate research scientist, you know, in most cases just is a change in title. They're not necessarily changing that much about the job. But if there is a true material change, we would want to make an amendment to that H1B. Regardless if we are going to amend or not, we want to be informed. So you should let us, always let us know when there is a change to a person's title during the duration of their H1B. In this case, you can now submit the request. You could have submitted the request 6 months in advance of July 1 for us to amend that petition as of July 1, so it would coincide with the title. That would be the best option. But of course, now in hindsight, we'll just select a date going forward, in this case, sooner than October, prior to the expiration of their October H1B. We can choose, let's say, a September 1 start date. And that's just 2 months following the change in appointment. That's notifying them as soon as we become aware is important. So that's what we'll do. But so I would suggest you select a 9/1 start date and submit the H1B in the next week or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a question, just to confirm, we can't renew an H1B staff administrative position either. Okay, very good question. We will grandfather in anybody who is currently in H1B, who is an administrative or support staff position. We will also honor any requests before 9/1.
Hi, Kathy. It's Phoebe in
Hey,
psychiatry. Just a quick question. If I needed to get an idea of how many visas are sponsored through psychiatry in your office, whether they're J1s or H1s, how would I get that?
Okay, we can run a report in Compass, and I will ask Christina to do that, and she will run a report of all your J's and all your H's.
Great. And then like, does Amy as our senior director have access to everybody's online application through Compass? Is there like a super user access that can view that information or not really?
No, I don't believe so. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, but I do not believe that is, the access as a departmental person is not that kind of access, no. We would have to run a report.
Okay. Just
And
because,
my understanding also is, do the departments receive a PAC feed or a report from PAC about upcoming, let's say, expiration dates?
so I think that we received that through our payroll team. So our payroll managers notifies us of expiring or upcoming expirations on visas. But the question I think was more related to, just recently I've become a part of the H-1B applications or J-1s with our team. And so sometimes I just find myself not having some of the information accessible. So I log in through my Compass and I can only see the H-1Bs that I've submitted. So I'm not able to gauge where we are in the process for other applications. So that was my question regarding Amy.
So I believe, yeah, that the access she would not have, and we would have to run a report.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just jump in here. So if you give them the temp ID number, they will be able to like input that into their Compass and then see the application as well. They'll just need the ID.
Right, but in order to get like a full picture of all of the H's and J's in the Department of
No, it'd just be
Psychiatry.
individuals. No,
Yeah,
just be
so we would
individual
have to run a
records.
report.
Yeah,
Yes. we would.
yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for coming, and we hope we'll see people back on campus maybe by September. And some of you are already there, but the ISSO will probably be hybrid, I would say. I think we're still kind of figuring all of that out, but I'm sure we'll see people across the hall at the hole in the wall. So take care, everybody, and have a great summer. And thank you so much.